Wonder is the foundation of every great achievement. It's what bonds us together, pushes us to keep finding solutions, and lets us create something from nothing. Without that spark, there is no science, no creativity, no thirst for knowledge, or hunger for change. But with it, the breakthroughs our customers need most are just one innovation away. As we work to create a more connected world, a more circular economy, and more climate-conscious technologies and solutions, we're designing products alongside our customers with their biggest challenges in mind, so we can grow with the world around us, starting with our promise to reach zero carbon emissions by 2050. Every solution we find is fueled by wonder and powered by science. It's this fuel that drove our past and propels us to the future. Wait until you see where wonder takes us next.
Actually, that's kind of cool. I love that mindset of having wonder, right? As we go into this conversation. Again, my name is Jim Lee. I am the Leadership and Development Director for SACE, and I have with us one of our amazing trainers and faculty, Hope Yin. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. And today we're going to be talking about the hopeful leader. Um, so when I look at this conversation, Hope, I want us to start off and think about like, what are all the things that we've seen for a lot of the people that we coach? Maybe a lot of people that are trying to move up in their career and get stuck. What are some of the common things that maybe Hope that you found in all these participants that we can have some maybe opportunities to help them with today?
Yeah, so Jem, are you still sharing your screen?
Oh, yeah, let me go ahead and turn that off. Yep.
Okay. So, first of all, I hope that you had a chance to know who I am, read a little about my experience. I was born and raised in China and came to the US for graduate school when I was 25 years old. So I was already an adult, formed my identity, and get into a new world of new culture, new language. So a lot of challenges. But in the meantime, I was an excellent engineer. I have three master's degree in engineering. So in my mind, as long as I am solving problems, I'm having this technical expertise, I should be successful, which to me, when I think about it, is just one of the legs when I walk. What is the other leg? The other leg to me is leadership. Leadership is such a broad umbrella, and you look at 10 different leaders, they all look differently and they lead differently. So hopefully today we can share some of the traits that I employ to myself, and I work my whole life on some of them or all of them. I was talking to them even today that on a daily basis, I am still learning. I'm learning a new word, learning a new AI tools. I introduced Gem, a new AI tool. We can do marketing. All of that. It's a continuous learning. But meantime is how can we work smart? Because as a STEM professional, that you are already smart in your technical expertise, but how can we work smart for our career development? And that would be our focus today. I hope that I can share some of the lessons learned, some of the strategies that I deployed within my career. And as a Fortune 25 executive, as well as a CEO of my own company, I am practicing those skills, those traits every single day.
So I'm going to say some stuff, Hope, that other people may feel like you're the exception to the rule, Hope. Sure, you got all those advanced degrees. Sure, you're able to do that. But you know what? Like that's because you're exceptional. Like you're special. You're like that what would you say the 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 one in a million person, that success story, but that's not for me. Like I like you don't know me, Hope. Like you don't know the challenges, the struggles that I've had. And I hear that often, and I don't think that people realize um, how those become more self-fulfilled prophecies of limitations that they create for themselves rather than, okay, you have limitations, but what are you doing to work on them? And I want to maybe say, hope for you, you have a bunch. And so statistically, I'm just looking at you, Asian female, Asian females, and you were in tech, right? Worked for a large corporation, but yet you became an executive. And that is very rare. But I don't think it has to be rare. I just think that sometimes we fall into certain social norms. We allow other people's beliefs to become our limiting beliefs. And so therefore we kind of hit like this bamboo ceiling, or sometimes for women, bamboo glass ceiling is
Yeah.
sometimes what they face. So share a little bit more about that for yourself. Like, why is that not true? Why are you, I mean, you are exceptional, but it's not that you were born this way. Like you actually worked hard for it.
Well, Jim, I think you touched upon that we have the bamboo ceiling, we have the glass ceiling. It's actually a concrete ceiling, right?
Okay.
It's so hard to break through. However, I think it's possible. But let me just share a little bit of my own life experience. I am exceptional, but I am also just a normal person. I was actually born into a very poor family because my parents were impacted by the Chinese Cultural Revolution. If you know about Chinese Cultural Revolution, put a yes into the chat. And those were the time that the whole society is upside down. So my parents lost their job, they were sent to the rural area, and they were doing hard work in the field, and we didn't have enough food and money, all of that. So my childhood was really in a poverty, but I was a happy child because my parents were really loving parents. So at the time, the only thing I know would be study. Being a good student, being a good child. It's like I was following the rule. I bet a lot of you would be have that typical uh, child, like you want to be the best child you can be, best student. And that's what I did for a very long time, including when I get time to get married, I was following the societal expectation of, hey, it's time to get married. Even though I didn't know whether that's what I should be doing. And then came to the US. I actually really struggled about learning English. Why? It's because I actually have severe hearing impairment. But I didn't know because I was able to finish my graduate degrees and I can read lips, I can hear them. So I didn't know until I was 40 years old. I was already in the US for 15 years. I was struggling about English. I was like, how come I still don't understand them? I'm already in the US for 15 years. That's when I decided I'm going to do something. I got my hearing aid. All of a sudden, I can hear. It's a different world. So the lessons from here is if we don't know what we don't know, we are not going to get better. But once you know the tools you can leverage, all of a sudden, you're in a different world. So now my English is getting better, but my personal life was a disaster. And after 16 years of marriage with my husband, and we got divorced, I was the sole custodian of my two young children. So, if any of you have children, I understand, Jim, you have a daughter, lovely, but it's you and your wife together raising one child. I am one person raising two children. Imagine that. And I also have had a high demanding job at work leading global teams. So, a full time job at home, a full time job at work. Where is time for myself? However, even during those most difficult time, I never stopped learning. What did I do? I took my kids to martial arts class. I'm in the class with them. I took them to ski lesson. I'm in the class with them. So that is how I learn, leveraging every single minute I have to continue improve myself physically, mentally, emotionally, leadership, all of that. So I think I shared enough of my challenges. It's not all rosy for me. I had to overcome. So the challenges, knowing that yes, there's a limit, yes, there's a ceiling, but it's up to me to break through. And of course, along the way, I would work with other people, my mentors, my sponsors, my advocates, and leverage those people to my advantage. But also, it's a two-way street. I was helping them to be successful as well.
So there's two things that you're sharing here, Hope, that I want to pull out that I've seen that are maybe different. One is your work is a vehicle that helps you towards your goals. And maybe like as you are, if we use the analogy of a vehicle, you're in a car. And in your car, um, your vehicle was maybe not as well equipped as other peers. Like you mentioned, you had a hard time hearing. Your language was an issue. So imagine a car that you have to drive that does not have, a horn. It does not have headlights. There's a lot of limitations that you have. And some people may just drive with it and adapt with it and just continue on that path and journey. And then when they hit a dead end wall, then they try to change vehicles. What I'm hearing from you might be a little bit different, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is you knew where you wanted to go. You knew your vehicle was not sufficient, and you didn't wait till you hit a wall because you knew that was going to happen. But you said, hey, I don't have a horn, but I'm going to go try to build something so that I can be heard. And I'm going to put some lights on, or it might not be the official lights, but I'm going to get a flashlight or something so that I can see forward and then go as far as I can with it. And I think there's a difference here when I parallel that to careers where some people have a job because they were told to get a job and that was their cultural norm. Like, hey, get a good education, get a good job, and then who cares where it's going to take you? At least you're going to live. So that's a little bit of survival versus, hey, I want to do this. I want to have this kind of life. I'm going to have kids. I want to give my kids the best life possible. And in order for me to do that, then I may have this job, but I'm going to use this job as a vehicle to get me from one step to another step and towards something that you want to have. Does that sound right in terms of like maybe
Yeah, I
the
love
outlook and
your
perspective?
analogy because we all drive different type of cars, right? We have our different preference or different affordability that we can afford different cars. If you use that as an analogy, even if you're driving perhaps an old car, but if you know your destination, you are going to get there. Maybe it take you 2 more days comparing to someone who has the best car in the world and they get there faster. That's okay because we are living our own life. Other people's success may not be the same success that we define. I think a lot of times when we think about the future, we know roughly where we're going, but sometimes it's too far away. We either saying, well, it doesn't matter what I'm doing right now. It actually every minute matters. Every single skill you acquire matters. Every person you interact matters. So in my journey, it just those accumulation of small things and what you do every single day. Like when I'm cooking, I'm listening to podcast, right? Because those are the things that like, I'm cooking. I can do it without opening my eyes. But in the meantime, I'm doing something else that's meaningful.
So it sounds like what you're doing then is you're prescribing to yourself to say, hey, I'm not going to just sit and idle and live life like everybody else is. I'm going to do something different intentionally to live the life that I want. Maybe not the life that everybody else seems to have, or maybe like the life that our parents think we want to have in a way.
Yeah. So I think for me, it changes in the beginning, like early stages. All I can think of was a good education, a good job, and going to abroad and study and expand my horizon, having a family, raising children. So at each stage, and you may want different things, but I feel that in my late 30s, early 40s, I started to ask myself this question of if I have everything, if I have the money, I paid off the mortgage, I don't have to pay the tuition anymore, I have everything I need. What do I want to do?
Hmm.
I encourage everyone to think about that. Assuming you have everything, what are you going to do now? And some people may say, I'm going to travel the world. Awesome. Travel the world. And you may have different interest, but I would say that do not wait until then. Work on something right now that you're going to do when you have everything. And that's exactly what I did. Even in my early 30s, I was volunteering in the community. When my kids were in Chinese school, I was teaching in Chinese school. When they were dancing, I was volunteering. So whatever I do accumulated the skills that I need today that I run my own company.
So I love something that you shared, which was, and it's going to sound really weird, like, hey, I just want to travel the world. Now, what's interesting is there are those that wait and then they travel the world, but when they travel the world, and I see this a lot, they don't know how to travel the world. They actually don't enjoy traveling the world because it's so hard, as well as they could only do so much traveling because it's negatively impactful in their lifestyle, right? So, for example, um, if you want to travel the world, then what do you have to start doing now so that when you do retire, you get to travel the world? But then maybe how can you, while you're working, like learn different cultures or like there's some things that people were sharing in the chat box about like build perseverance, right? And maybe some things at work aren't enjoyable, but it's going to help you to become better so that like I remember for me, the hardest part of traveling to Vietnam was not the financial exchange rate, which is a lot of math and it could be confusing because it's like 22,000, to a dollar, but it was the fact that they do everything a little bit differently. So it wasn't like I could ask Vietnam to do things my way, but I had to learn how to do things Vietnam's way, which is in at work, like the ability to work with your coworkers, do things your manager's way helps you to then enjoy when you travel the beauty and the benefits of how they do things in their way. And one of my pet peeves, honestly, is when I go to like some forums for travel, people are like upset that it's not done the way they do that at home. And they give like negative reviews to a hotel because like they do it this way. Who does it this way? Like, well, that's how they do that in that country. And I just see like it just limits their ability to enjoy something so beautiful. So that's
Mm.
just one parallel. But anything else, Hope, that you could think of?
I love the point you brought up because to me, I traveled the half of the world to the America from China. And I wouldn't say everything is different, but almost everything is different, right?
Mhm.
So I had to adapt. And same thing as you, I can't ask Americans to behave, to say my language, to behave the same way that I behave. I need to be curious and learn about how they communicate, how they build relationship, how they watch the football. You know, I live in Columbus, Ohio. It's the big football city. So I learned the rules of watching football, how they're playing, so that I can have that conversation. And so I think the key is to this is actually going back to the hopeful framework that I had. The first one is H is humanity and humility. What does that mean? Which humanity to me is I am part of the humanity. I am part of the human race. Whatever I do, even though how tiny, how small it is, it's impacting the whole race. So if you can find some common traits with another human, because we're human, right? And it's easier to build that relationship. On the other hand, I had to work a lot on humility because the Eastern philosophy is asking us to be humble, to never brag, to never talk about yourself. Because if you do that, people kind of look at you in a different way. However, through decades of learning, practicing, what I think the true humility is I am not going to brag per se for the cause of ego. I feel satisfied when other people have spotlight on me, but I share because I want to benefit other people. Because I treat myself as a person similar to other people, now I can look at other people who may be different than me, who may have different neural diversity spectrum, and who may have a mental health issue, who may be in LGBT, all of that, all of a sudden, I don't judge them anymore. Sometimes I think our Asian culture, the way that I was brought up, we had a lot of judgment. The judgment actually created shame, embarrassment. I think that personally, I had to work really hard on. Well, even though right now, at this moment, I am not speaking perfect English, but I hope that you can understand me. As long as you can understand me, maybe I have used a wrong word, maybe I used the wrong grammar. It's okay. I think you would understand that I'm not perfect, but I don't want being perfect become the enemy of making progress. Thank you for the
So
thumb up.
there's so much resonance here. Okay, so I want to reframe this a little bit, Hope, because I think what you're sharing is golden. It's a big part of our conversation today. I'm going to throw in, the hopeful framework. It's a little card that Hope created for us, and I threw it in the chat box for you to kind of follow along. I'll also throw it on the share screen here. But I want us to hear for Hope, these were cultural norms that she had, but I think maybe practiced in her cultural way was seen as weaknesses. But what she's sharing is how do you still take that value? Or maybe that quality of leadership that you enjoy and continue to make it a part of you authentically, you're now presenting it to the audience in a way that is valuable to them, and so they see it as a strength. So if I were to recap, let's say humility and humanity, and this is my experience, was I would always say yes to my manager, and I would always do things the way they would want me to do, and it pinned me as the quintessential individual contributor. I never shared my own thoughts and my ideas. And it wasn't until one of my managers challenged me, he's like, you always say yes. And I was like, what's wrong with that? Isn't that what you want me to do? He goes, no, I want you to challenge me. And then so he had to teach me to share, like, hey, I've got a difference of opinion and I could be wrong. But my goal is that this would help us to get to our goals a little bit better. And if this is valuable to you, I would more than happy to do that. So that's how you do humility in a way that was valued in the Western world versus doing humility the way I would have to do it with our parents was I would just say yes, 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 and I couldn't say anything more. Right? Right?
I
Is
can
that the
relate
same
to
idea?
that. I absolutely can relate to that, Jim,
Yeah.
because we were taught to be other-centered. We were taught it's not polite to reject someone. So throughout my career, I had to learn how to say no in a nice way, in a kind way. Here's why we need to say no. First of all, we can't do everything from everyone. Second of all, have you ever requested someone and they said no to you?
Yeah.
We get that a lot, right? You
Yeah.
want a promotion, your manager said no. You want
Yeah.
a raise, they said no. So everybody else is saying no. You can say no too. And thirdly, I think saying no is kind to the people who are asking. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you said yes because you do not want to say no. And then you start to do it, but you're really resentful. And you also may burn out yourself because you have too much in your plate. And you're not doing an excellent job for the other people. It's not responsible to them either. So it's not easy to say no. How can you say no? Maybe just a little easier. I would say that you have to be clear on where you're going, whether personally or professionally, and what's your interest. And also ask yourself why I would say yes or no. I think when you're clear on what type of person you are, where you're going, what is your purpose? That's a big word, but what is your purpose? And then your decision making becomes so much easier. And let me give you a real example. I was still in the work corporate world. At one time, I was offered um, a role, and I said, can I ask more about what this role is about? What kind of skills are needed? And this was from my manager then. So supposedly I shouldn't say no, right?
Yeah.
But I said, tell me more about this role instead of just saying yes. After they shared the role, the responsibilities, and commitment, and I said, well, I have no interest in that kind of role, so I won't be able to really pour my energy and skills into that role. So that's how I said it. I said no because it's not good for the organization, it's not good for me. So I think personally, you can also say, like, oh, I may not have the time. Um, do you want me to introduce someone else to you? In that case, you said no, but you are also adding value to the person who is asking for help from you.
So it reminds me of a time when um, I had to learn to not be pinned as the Excel guru. Like I was always the one that had to do Excel spreadsheets. I was good at it, but I hated it. And my manager saw that I was good at it, and I always said yes. And then finally, I learned to say, I would love to continue to do this, but is there something else I can do? In fact, I would like to do this because it's what I'm passionate about. I can do Excel great, but I really don't like it. And imagine how much better I could do on this, which I want to learn how to do. Could we find an opportunity there? And my hope is that, it will serve you better, right? So a little bit of that humility, but it's also like, I think you're telling the truth, right? There's a virtue there too, right? Like a value of saying like, I don't want you to believe that this is true when it's not about me. So allow me to share something that's a little bit more true so that I can now move towards this or this goal that I have and what I want to do. Um,
Yeah, I love that. So, Jim, if I just add a little more comments on that,
yeah,
if you never said no, then because you're good at it, you're gonna get more requests because
yeah,
every time you said yes, it just confirmed that's something that you want to do. So
yeah.
you don't want to put yourself into a position that you do not enjoy doing.
But I didn't want to be rude, right? That was the thing. But
Right.
then I saw myself getting resentful and bitter that other people were doing things that I wanted to do, and they weren't as good as I could have been and what I did, right? So then that's where I
Right.
like kind of like started having to reframe things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the interesting thing was that's how I got promoted. It was my first promotion was because like my manager's like, "Oh, I didn't know you want to do that." It's like, "Yeah," and I did it, and I was so good. He's like, "Oh, you should get promoted," and so that's how I got promoted from it.
See, you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Walk me through the rest of your hopeful framework. Like, what are some things that we can take from each letter? So we've gone through humanity and humility, and maybe we've talked a little bit about open-mindedness, but optimistic. But can you again share like what are some things that maybe how you learned it from your own background culture of growing up in China through the Cultural Revolution to like, hey, what's a better way to maybe express that?
Yes, I think the optimistic is the O for me is open-minded and optimistic. The optimistic, I really learned that from my father. As I mentioned, he and my mother lost their job during the Cultural Revolution, and they were mistreated and all of those terrible stuff. But eventually, they did get their job back. And so my father really instilled this message of no matter how hard it is, do not ever think about like let go, like give up. Like you keep going, eventually history will repeat itself in a different way, right? Like
Yeah.
a cyclic cycle. But if you wait long enough, you keep working on yourself and you will get what you want. And so that's optimistic as leaders. We do need to be optimistic. It doesn't mean that you're going to be blindly think something great is going to happen. But if you keep an eye to the future with the optimistic view, it's going to give you more energy, which I will talk about in the E. I give you an example. I love my mom, who is a very kind person, very hardworking. But here's the example. I said, "Hey, mom, I'm going to take you to a park this Sunday." The first thing came to her mind is it going to rain? That's what we meant by either optimistic or pessimistic. Either has its advantages, but I would say, well, we don't know. Let's wait until that day. If it's raining, then we can change our plan. So if you keep an optimistic mindset, it will be that here is where we want to go to and what we're going to do. There may be bump along the way, but we're going to be flexible and we're going to adapt. We're going to be able to make it. So that what it is optimistic. Being optimistic as a leader, we do give hope to our teams. Open-minded. I feel that when I grew up in the culture, in the family, it's pretty much binary, which means a thing, a perspective is either wrong or right. There's nothing in between. But we
Hmm.
know there are multiple shades of gray in the middle, right? So as a leader, if we keep our mind open and think about other people's perspective. And sometimes we think, I truly don't understand how you think of that. I truly don't understand why you can't see what I saw. And if we keep open mind, asking open-ended questions of, tell me more, what made you think so? Tell me more about your perspective. How did you have this conclusion, right? And then we can have more collaboration with our team. So I think being open-minded and optimistic are super important for a leader.
Keep going. What are some other things? Because I know, like, yeah, it's hard, oops, sometimes to like keep that open mind, especially when your parents drilled, like, I mean, for me, like, you had to be a STEM, right? Like, I got that a lot. You had to be in STEM. What job are you gonna get if you don't, right? But then, you know, learning to maybe even listen to your parents and, okay, I did some of this, but then being collaborative in that way. But on P and passion and purpose, I hear a lot of that, right? Going back to like the vehicle, like it wasn't going to take you to where you wanted to go. And at least for me, like once I started having a vision for what I wanted in my career and what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, I was less attached to the job itself, but I was more attached to the opportunities and the experiences that I was going to collect to make me a better person and better qualified so I can do the next thing and the next thing that gave me those experiences I wanted to have. So tell me more about passionate and purpose in that way.
And that's exactly what you said, Jim. I think when we find that purpose, um, it just make everything you do easier. It's not always easy, right? Because we do need to do the hard thing. But when you have a clear purpose where you're going, you can look at the challenges you have. You're going to analyze it. So, what skills am I learning? What opportunities do I have? Who can I talk to? And who may already have the answer? And that really make every single thing you do more fun, enjoyable. I think a passion, a lot of times people may misunderstood that passion means like you're on the top of the world, you're just like always strong. Passion can show up in different people for so many different ways. You see people who may be more introverted, they may be more quiet. It doesn't mean that they do not have passion. Passion to me is something that you really enjoy, and you know there's a larger purpose around what you do, and you can continuously put energy onto that thing and for doing it for a long time. For example, English is my second language, as I mentioned. On a daily basis, I'm still learning how to correctly pronounce certain words. So here is my treasure box. Um, each index card shows the word that I want to practice because I have difficulties. But because of the effort I put in since I arrived in the US, starting to learn and going to Toastmasters and going to competitions, joining the National Speakers Association, became a professional speaker. And recently, I earned the first place for storytelling in National Speakers Association. And those are not just normal people. They make a living by speaking. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is when you have passion because you know what you're doing is important for what you want to do, align that to your purpose, that will give you the drive, the motivation to keep doing and keep getting better. And I hope that you can find passion either in the work you're doing or community work or ERG, whatever that is. And it's just so much more enjoyable when you have that passion and have a purpose. So continue for the E, which is empathetic and energetic. As you can see, I have a lot of energy. The reason that I have a lot of energy is because I work on myself. What does that mean? It means on a daily basis, I am doing exercise. On a daily basis, I'm having a good night's sleep, 8 hours. On a daily basis, I put some great brain food into my brain. On a daily basis, I think about how can I change the world. On a daily basis, I do reflection, I journal. On a daily basis, I think about, oh, did I get angry or upset on something? So why is that? Working on myself so that I have all the energy. Because if you think about it, a lot of times, even just one conversation with your coworker may ruin your day, may have ruined your day, right? Because you keep thinking about what happened to that conversation. Why did he doesn't agree with me? Blah 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 blah. So I would really encourage people to think about where did your energy go? So at the end of the day, you can still have a lot of energy to go on. Empathetic is really being empathetic is really a great leadership trait is because a lot of people think being empathetic is being Sympathetic is like, oh, um, your dog died. I'm so sorry for you. But that's not empathetic. Empathetic is think about yourself in that situation, what you might be feeling, what you might need. Maybe it's a hug to that person. But even that may not be empathetic. Empathetic is to truly understand what the other person want and think and feel. How do you do that? By asking them. By asking, hey Jim, what support do you need from me? How can I support you? Would cooking a meal good for you? Would that be good? So you have to have that conversation to be empathetic. I think it's very hard to be truly empathetic. Sometimes it does require we go through something similar to understand another person's perspective and the situation.
I want to add to that empathetic though. I think sometimes like culturally it was hard for me to feel like I can be empathetic if maybe the person I'm talking to was different. Like growing up for me, like I wanted to be empathetic, but I didn't know how to be empathetic sometimes. And I've shared to people like just share like, hey, you know, I'd love to be empathetic. Anything I could do to help you, right? Like sharing your intent up front is so much more helpful that even if you do something wrong, they'll see it in the way that you intend it to be, not necessarily like worrying that it wasn't like you said earlier. Don't worry that it's not perfect, right? Just let good be good enough. And it's interesting. I get so many people ask me, Jim, how do I tell somebody blah 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 blah? I'm like, just tell them. I'd like to tell you this, 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 and this. What do you think, right? So I think sometimes we
Yeah.
could some of these things on this list, like sometimes we could overthink it and not do it, but I don't think that's what you're saying here. Like just do it, right? Like just build that relationship.
I think, Jim, you actually demonstrate one of the important leadership trait is the communication, the clear communication. A lot of times we think here and we expect other people understand. And that's not how we communicate. And each person had their own communication style. And we have different life experiences. How we experience the life would impact how we think about certain things when that happen, and what would be our thought and feelings and actions and responses. And so that's why it's so important for you to say, I want to be empathetic and let me know how can I do that. And that alone is setting the agenda or the context of just tell me everything that I can do because I want to be empathetic to you. So that's great. So F is futuristic, fearless, and fun. I think we can all be futuristic if we think, give us a little more time about what's going to happen in the future. Also, by reading some of the articles from some of the keep reliable news, right, on a daily basis. I do not watch the cable news because you can probably most of the time is depressing news. But I do read anything that relevant to my coaching and technology, AI, and the society, where we're going, what's the impact to the workforce by the advancement of AI? How can we uplift human being capital? How can we train our brain to be more like focused? And because otherwise, I think majority of you, your time, your schedule is going to be broken down into pieces by all the different meetings, right? In the Lotus Note conference, I will talk about how can you use AI to help you on your communication and public speaking because you have so many meetings you need to communicate. Not communicating itself is communicating. You're just letting other people know that you don't have a perspective. Like Jim mentioned, you want to show up with courage. That's where the fearless is. We may never be able to fearless, but if we continue to do the things that scares us, we would grow. That's how you know you're growing, because all of a sudden you feel like, I feel uncomfortable. I feel a little fearful. But in the end, I also think about life is so much than what you achieve. It's also about this journey of who am I spending time with, what kind of problem I am solving, who I'm serving, which person's life I was able to contribute and make a difference to their lives, and just make that fun, right? That's a part of the life. So moving on to the U is uplifting self and others. And I think human nature is we want to be able to grow. We want to be able to do something better and higher and reach some bigger goals. So a lot of times that if we are not being intentional, we maybe want to winning too much, and we want to be at the top of the mountain without uplifting others. I think a true leader is someone who not only continue uplifting themselves to the next level, they are also developing their teams, developing their children, developing everyone around us. And that's how you can continue to make that ripple impact to other people's life.
I like
The
that you
last,
put self
yes,
really quickly. I like that you put self in there because sometimes we can feel selfish about it. And I know that a lot of people talk about like self-love, self-care. I think there's a way that it could feel selfish, but at the same time, if you can't help your team to be their best if you're not at your best either. And I think there's like this the selfless way of doing it where you're serving other people by uplifting and upscaling yourself maybe versus like just like, oh, I'm gonna kill myself and help other people. And in fact, it's a little bit of like, well, you're giving your worst part of yourself to other people, and that's not on brand. That's not a good reflection of you. And you even talked about earlier about like sleeping 8 hours. And I teach people like, you want to work from rest, not rest from work. And a lot of times we will work, we'll work really hard, we'll stay up late, we're diminishing our effectiveness, our quality is depreciating, and then we're becoming a lot worse physically. And then we have to wake up early, and then this vicious cycle happens again. You talk about cycles, but like I think uplift is also recognizing that I'm going to work from rest and I'm going to go to bed early so I can give my best to everybody else. And I'm not being, I shouldn't feel guilty that I'm not, dying here or like being so sacrificial in that way. So I just wanted to correlate those two and it resonated very well.
absolutely. I think being a little selfish, quote, quote, selfish is a requirement for leadership. Like you said, if your cup is empty, how can you pour out any type of tea? There's no
Yeah.
water. So we have to uplift ourselves um, as well as uplifting other people. And the last letter is the L. This is where we learn and lead. I feel that when I was younger, I was finishing my bachelor degree. I was offered a free entry to graduate school because of my academic achievement. I had to think about it. Do I want to do that? I was like, I'm done. I'm done school. I'm done learning. I want to go to work. But I realized in the workspace and throughout my life that we can never done learning. I think the day we done learning is the day that we're done with life, because there's this thing said you can never step into the river, the same river twice, right? We are not the same us, and we are changing all the time. You had a one conversation, your mind changed. You did 10 push up, your muscle changed. So we're not the same person anymore. So keep learning and keep your mind sharp, and just learning from other people is a great way to keep that refreshing mindset comes in. I think everybody has the skills that they can make a living, but very few can lead intentionally. I think leading is really a great way to be able to multiply your impact, your contribution to the world, to the family. I am multiplying myself by developing my team member. I am multiplying myself by coaching more leaders. I am multiplying myself by raising my children to be leaders. And that's how we continue to learn and lead.
I think I put your link in the chat box for those that want to connect with you. I hope that's okay. Um,
Yes.
but I think there's so much gold that you shared here, and because we're running out of time, I'm going to want to wrap this up in a couple of statements. So thank you, number one, for showing up and sharing vulnerably, like all your imperfections. And I love like a lot of you may not know this, but I actually met Hope. I was presenting for her former employer one day, and I was speaking for her company, and she reached out to me. I didn't see that conversation until the day after when she was actually part of the Lotus conference, and she was speaking. It's like I reached out to her, and then we were cross communicating. But what I saw was someone that exemplified everything in this hopeful acrostic here that she's given us. And I believe those are like the building blocks. And I kind of share this in the chat. Like she does a little bit well. She moves forward and it builds momentum. And I think the reason why you see so much positive energy is when you have momentum, it's like a gyroscope. Like even though you get tilted off a little bit, that momentum helps restructure. And there's a lot more predictability and there's a lot more positivity in your life when you know what those outcomes are and you feel like you're in control of that seat. And that's what I saw in her. And I literally met with her. I talked to her and I flew out to where she lives in Dublin, Ohio, because I thought she was so amazing. And I'm so like grateful to have her as part of the SACE team here. And I think each one of you would really just find like just more time with her would be very helpful. And some of those opportunities here are in the Lotus Conference. Would love to encourage you to join. If you could be there, great. And don't let your, and this is a big thing like pet peeve of mine, don't let your employer determine whether you can go. I mean, like, don't let your employer, like, if they can't sponsor you, just go. It's only $400. And I would say it's probably one of the best $400 you'll spend because it's just not a conference of what I like to say of the wow. Like, we heard a lot of wow today, but in this conference, like, I am forcing trainers to teach you how. I want them to be held accountable for the statements that they make and the promises that they provide, that they will help you to actually achieve those. So, like, that's where I think this is. There's a lot more than just the knowledge transfer, it's also the training that you have. And she also offers a cohort. And if you want to join that, I'm throwing that in the chat box. Like, just spend more time with amazing people like this. And again, invest in yourself. And if you have difficulty, you have challenges, you know, feel free to reach out to me. Like, I'm more than happy to provide you some career coaching and help you to guide along this way and put stuff into action. But the biggest thing that I'd love for you to take away from Hope is despite all the challenges, despite all the norms, despite all the things that people have told her she can do, can't do, shouldn't do, and there aren't a lot of other people like her in the position she has, she just went forward and didn't let perfection be the enemy of being good enough or even the best version of herself. And she gets better and better every day. So, with that, thank you all for joining in. I want to give Hope the last words to everybody. Hope, close us out. What would you like to share?
I say, first of all, thank you for spending your time here. You can be anywhere, but you are here spending time with me and Jim. So thank you so much. Secondly, the best investment is in yourself. Every year, I spend thousands of dollars investing in myself, including right now. I'm running my own business. I still invest in myself. So do that, and your future self will thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hope. Thank you all for being here. Love the chats and the conversations. We hope that you'll join us for our future, our next session that we have, but more than that, next week at our Lotus conference. Take care of yourselves, and be well.
Be
Bye.
hopeful.
Be hopeful.
Bye.